No one ever kissed me, she said, her voice trembling like dry leaves caught in a breeze, eyes fixed on the distant horizon where the sun bled gold into the sky. The Apache girl, small, fierce, yet worn by the weight of life too soon, looked away, hiding the quiet vulnerability that made her human. Silas Boone, the cowboy trailing her steps, bent down slowly, brushing a loose strand of her black hair from her face. He lingered a heartbeat too long, then, softly, deliberately, kissed her. The world seemed to pause. The horses' snorts faded, the wind softened, even the far-off coyote's howl seemed suspended in time. Her name was Nayeli, 17, sharp of mind, quick with bow and arrow, yet tender in ways she rarely admitted. Silas, 30, had spent years wandering the plains, the sun carving its story into his skin, the loneliness in his heart deepening with every mile. They met on a winding trail, where dust rose like spirits behind their horses and the horizon stretched wide and cruel yet alluring. Nayeli had been fleeing, away from hunters who sought to claim Apache lands, away from a world that demanded courage from the very young. Silas had been following rumors of stolen cattle, unaware that the girl he found in the desert heat would change the rhythm of his life entirely. Their first encounter was fraught with caution. Nayeli's gaze was sharp, evaluating, her hands never far from her bow. Silas, though calm, kept his revolver ready, a gesture of respect, not menace. "Why'd you stop?" she asked, voice low, wary. The sun made her skin glow like burnished copper, illuminating the lines of worry and resilience etched on her face. Silas tipped his hat, the brim shadowing his worn eyes. Didn't feel right letting a girl face the world alone. She studied him, calculating, the weight of her past heavy in her gaze. Finally, she nodded, hesitant but trusting enough to accept his company. Their journey began along narrow, treacherous trails, heat shimmering off the dirt by day, frost creeping into their blankets by night. The first intimacies were quiet, almost imperceptible, sharing water, murmuring softly over the crackle of a fire, the horses shifting nervously under the stars. Silas noticed the small things, how Nayeli flinched at the smell of gunpowder, the way her hands trembled when drawing water from a river, but also her resilience, her quiet defiance against a world that had demanded she endure far too much. Danger came swiftly, without warning. A group of bandits ambushed them along a narrow canyon, dust rising in heavy clouds, heat radiating from sunbaked stones. Nayeli knocked her arrow, heart hammering. Silas drew his revolver, calm but precise, each shot echoing against the canyon walls. In the chaos, he pressed a hand against hers, steadying her aim. Their closeness surged into something undeniable. When the dust settled and the bandits fled, they were bruised and shaken, but alive, the canyon echoing only with their ragged breaths and the faint creak of saddles. That night, inside a quiet cabin by a flickering lantern, Silas cleaned his revolver, fingers working methodically. Nayeli watched, tracing the rim of her cup with small, thoughtful circles. I thought I'd be alone forever," she whispered, voice fragile. Silas looked up, eyes soft, tired, yet unwavering. "You're not," he said softly, a vow more than a statement. They shared a silence that only two survivors could understand, tentative, healing, grounding. Silas reached out, brushing his fingers against hers, and Nayeli's hand twitched, then rested fully in his. The touch was gentle, electric, unspoken promises flowing between them. Days stretched into weeks. Dawn broke across the plains like spilled gold, and the wind whispered through the brush as they traveled together, horses kicking up clouds of dust behind them. Their slow-burn romance unfolded in quiet gestures, sharing blankets during frost-laden nights, laughing softly at clumsy moments, hands brushing over bowls of water, fingers interlaced over saddles while crossing rivers. Each small touch layered trust, each glance deepened understanding. One evening, under the silver glow of a moon rising over endless prairie, Silas pressed a tender kiss to Nayeli's forehead. "I've waited for this," he murmured, voice low as the desert wind. She leaned into him, letting herself be held for the first time in a long while, the tension of constant vigilance melting into quiet surrender. It was a kiss without urgency, without heat, pure warmth, comfort, and safety. Yet the West had no patience for softness. A rival rancher, intent on claiming land Silas had staked, sent men to intimidate him. That night, Wood groaned under heavy boots, lanterns shattered, smoke curling through the cabin. Nayeli froze, terror climbing her chest, but Silas pressed his hand to her cheek, thumb brushing away a tear. "We face this together," he whispered. Courage flared in her chest. Together, they confronted the intruders, hearts pounding, hands steady, guided by trust and shared resolve. By dawn, the threat was gone, leaving a scorched, bruised cabin, but intact and them still holding each other. The aftermath was quiet. Silas cleaned minor wounds, and Nayeli braided his hair, an act of intimate normalcy amidst chaos. The horses shifted, nostrils flaring as dawn painted the prairie gold. And in that light, Nayeli spoke softly, "I'm not afraid if you're here." Silas held her close, grounding her in a world too often cruel, their hearts beating in unison beneath the open sky.
Weeks became months.
Their bond deepened with shared labor, mending fences, guiding cattle, trading with neighboring settlements. These simple acts became rituals of closeness. Nights were spent beneath the canvas of stars, quiet conversations whispering secrets of past wounds, laughter like wind through prairie grass, hands intertwined over the warmth of shared blankets. Their intimacy remained tender, hugs, fleeting kisses, hands brushing in subtle ways, but the trust it built was profound. One evening, after a day of herding cattle beneath a sky ablaze with sunset, Silas led Nayeli to the crest of a gentle hill. Dust swirled around their boots, the prairie stretching golden and infinite before them. He bent slightly, lips brushing hers in a kiss slow and deliberate, the kind that holds forgiveness, hope, and promise. Nayeli leaned against him, whispering, "No one ever really held me like this." Silas smiled softly, the wind tugging at his hat, his heart tethered to hers at last. The following days passed in the quiet rhythm of their lives together. Horses stamped impatiently, floorboards groaned, lanterns flickered as night fell. Coyotes called in the distance, wind whispered through the brush, dust rose behind the cattle they guided, and the sun painted the plains in shifting hues of gold and amber. The intimacy between them grew in gestures, passing water, smoothing hair from each other's faces, the gentle brush of fingers over a hand when fear or sorrow appeared. Each act became sacred, a testament to a love built through survival, resilience, and patience. By the time winter crept across the plains, bringing frost that painted the grass silver and wind that bit through even thick jackets, Nayeli and Silas had become inseparable. Their love was steady, unhurried, a force that neither demanded nor imposed but grew naturally, resilient in its quiet power. In moments of reflection, Silas would watch Nayeli braid her hair by the firelight, noting how her eyes caught the flames, and Nayeli would trace the lines of his weathered face with gentle reverence, finding comfort in the presence of a man who had waited patiently, endured with her, and never asked her to be anything less than herself. Their story culminated not in grand triumph or violent confrontation, but in shared quiet, a testament to the lives they had endured and the love they had nurtured. One dawn, as the sun broke across the plains in soft pink and gold, Silas and Nayeli rode side by side, hands intertwined, hearts tethered, the wind carrying the scent of wildflowers and dust. The west remained vast, untamed, and often unforgiving, but for the first time, both felt anchored home in each other's presence, hope rising with the morning sun. In that light, the open prairie seemed less lonely, more luminous. Every gust of wind through the brush, every creak of leather, every whisper of distant coyotes felt like affirmation. They had endured, they had chosen each other, and together they would ride forward, side by side, into the horizon that stretched endlessly before them. No words were needed. Their survival, their trust, and their tender, quiet love spoke louder than anything else. The cowboy and the Apache girl, once solitary in a wide, harsh world, had finally found home in each other. And so, with the prairie stretching infinite in gold beneath the rising sun, they rode on, not as two wandering souls, but as partners, lovers, bound by courage, patience, and the enduring tenderness of hearts that had learned to trust again.